Hi, welcome. Um, I'm going to give you a warning up front here. I'm going to get a little bit political today. Not too political. I try to avoid politics typically with my channel, as many of you know, regular viewers. But this isn't overtly political. It's more an expression of my current worries about the state of affairs in the world, and it's also a bit of an ode to the country that I currently live in here in the UK. Um, as any of you know that have watched my other videos, I love living here. This is a fantastic place to live, and and with a lot that's going on in the world, I just felt like that's been reinforced lately, and I want to talk about that. But before I get all heavy here, my name is Bill. This is Coffee at the Crossroads. Thanks for joining me. If you, again, this isn't a super political thing. It's more about, I've talked in the past about gratitude, and I've talked about happiness, and I've talked about, kind of mental health and some of that kind of stuff. And so this is sort of, it's all in that vein. I want to share a story with you. Something that happened. My wife and I were discussing, and just how I came to this and why I wanted to record it. So a couple days ago, I mean, I think everybody knows what's going on in the world. We've got Ukraine, and we've got Syria, and we've got Iran, and we've got Venezuela, and now we've got Greenland of all places, and there's all kinds of terrible things happening. The events that happened in Australia a few weeks ago, and all that stuff. And there's all this really kind of heavy, stressful stuff going on in the news, right? And you can't escape it, right? And so, like, it's stressful. I found myself kind of avoiding the news a little bit and going, look, I don't want to go down that dark, rabbit hole. Um, but you need to stay informed, right? You still need to be you still need to know what's going on in the world, and I think that that's also a healthy part of gratitude and of happiness and of your own mental health, is kind of going, look, you know what? Here's where I am in the world, and this is the state of the world today. And so, anyway, I mean, that's a big preamble. But my wife and I were discussing. She was talking with someone at work, and her colleague said, "Man, that she was so stressed out about the state of affairs in the world and all of the stuff that was going on." And she said, "I tell you, if something happens in Greenland, like like this peaceful little country in the north, if something happens there, I'm leaving." And I said to my wife, I said, "Where's she going?" Like, where where is she going? And that's the crux of this video. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of bad stuff going on in the world, no doubt about it. And then a lot of unrest, and there's a lot of stuff that is downright depressing to watch on the news or to read about. Um, but and hey, I'm not here to brag or boast or rub anybody's nose in it or anything like that. But here in the UK, we've got it pretty good, right? And I know that a lot of my viewers are UK based viewers, and I get a lot of comments going, "Ah, you should have come 20 years ago, and this place was so much better in the 50s or whatever," like. And I think we kind of get caught up in the way, that it's always somewhere better, or it used to be, the good old days used to be better, or whatever. But objectively, it's really great here. I don't want to sound nasty, or I don't know. I don't want to come across in the wrong way, but you see some of the events that are occurring in other parts of the world, and it really makes you appreciate what you have where you live. And ultimately, I guess that's the crux of it. When my wife had that exchange with her coworker and then came home and told me about it, she was like, "Oh, so and so says she's leaving," and I was like, "Where would she go?" I'm from Canada, and Canada's a great place. But I don't think the situation in Canada is any better than it is here in the UK, you know? And we all know about, the things that are going on in the US, both internally and externally. And there are problems in mainland Europe, in the, continental Europe, and France and Italy and Poland and Hungary and, you name it, right? There's all these, things, and there's political tensions, and there's issues, economic issues, and there's all of this stuff going on with NATO and all of this stuff, right? So I just felt, I felt compelled to record this, to, just, well, where would we go, right? Um, and I don't mean that, like, I don't mean that in a rhetorical sense even. It is like, literally ask yourself, where would you go? You know, no place is perfect, obviously, and oh man, it isn't perfect here by any stretch of the imagination, but it's pretty darn good here. And I've mentioned, in my videos in the past about quality of life here. We go shopping, and there's an abundance of choice and food, and fresh produce, and fresh veg, and fresh fruit, and great wine and cheese, and assortments of meat, and all of this stuff. We have abundance at our doorstep. And every time I turn on the hot water, I have hot water, and just some things that people take for granted. We have high-speed internet, and there are parts of the world where that's being shut off, and there's people that are, that are worried for their personal safety and the safety of their families, and there's people worried about being deported, or there's people worried about government crackdowns, and all of this stuff going on, and for all for all for all that, the fact is that it isn't perfect here. It's pretty darn good here. We have clean air and clean water, and an abundance of food, and all of this stuff, and and those things may seem basic, but they're, you look around the world, and they're luxuries to some people, right? And so I guess that's it. And again, this isn't about rubbing it, thumbing your nose at somebody, or rubbing their nose in it, or making somebody feel bad. It was more, it's almost more a message to myself, be thankful and have that gratitude for what we have. But I couldn't help, I blurted it out when my wife said that, that with this exchange with her colleague about, oh, well, I'm leaving. And I thought, I just spit it out, where are you going? Right? Where are you going? Where is better than here? And this again is very really directed to the viewers in the UK that watch my video, and I'm, I'm sure that people will have differences of opinion, and I'm sure that, as I said, no place is perfect, and people will have their gripes, and they will have their things to complain about. We all do. But it's also pretty great here, and I think that I think it's healthy for us to recognize that, to recognize how fortunate that we are to live here. And certainly as an outsider, as a as a Canadian who has come here, I'm thankful that we've moved here, and this country has embraced me, um, and that made me feel welcome, and people have left comments about making me feel welcome. Not everybody. Some people have said some less than nice things about about people who immigrate into this country. But overwhelmingly, people have been sent positive messages, and it's just that's really fantastic, right? We still have so much to be thankful for, that I just felt like I needed to say that, and obviously in saying that, that comes across as, might come across to viewers outside of the UK as kind of you know, boasting or rubbing your nose in it or whatever. And that's not meant that way at all. My heart goes out to people who are struggling to put food on their table, and my heart goes out to people that are living under government crackdowns and that are living looking over their shoulder, worried about being deported or worrying about conflict knocking on their door. That's unbelievably challenging. I can't even imagine it, right? And that, so my heart goes out to those people, to all of you who have experienced that, or if you have loved ones that are living in some of these areas that are kind of oppressed, or that are. Sorry about that. I had a little technical technical difficulties. Wow. My the gimbal that I used to hold my phone just shut down and did a did like a thing. Anyway, you don't care about that. Yeah, so I was saying, for folks that have loved ones in some of these areas, like I said, living under oppression, or living looking over your shoulder, and it's unfathomable for someone living in a country like the UK. Thankfully, that's ultimately that's the message here, right? Is that I'm so thankful for being here, and I feel like that gratitude, it it helps me sort of deal with the stresses and the challenges of hearing what's going on in around the world. And yet my heart still goes out to these people, and as I mentioned before, I feel like it's so important to remain informed about what's going on. But yeah, I just can't help but feel like I'm so fortunate to be here, and so to my UK viewers, old and new, um, I think we should all count ourselves lucky. Uh, of course, I'm sure there's going to be, anytime you start talking about things that are of a political nature, I'm sure I'm going to get some feedback about this, and I welcome it. I mean, I think that's healthy. I'm sure that people are going to have a different opinion, and that's of course that's the we live in a free society where people are allowed to have those differing opinions. Again, one more reason why I love it here. But yeah, voice your opinion. I want to hear it. I think it's important for all of us to take a look at what we have, and certainly I've done that, and that's part of what this is about. It's another reason why I love this country, and as I said, this country has embraced me and welcomed me, and I'm thankful for that. So yeah, with that, I'm going to leave it there. I really welcome your input, on this. Please leave a comment and let me know, your thoughts. Yeah. Also, you know, if you like this video and you like these kind of topics, give me a thumbs up, please, and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. There should be another video you might want to watch. Watch more videos, subscribe, tell your friends, all that stuff. As I keep saying, I'm trying to build an online community, and I want people to engage with my stuff, and I need an audience to do that, right? So yeah. So please, if you could do that, that would be greatly appreciated. I'm Bill. This is Coffee at the Crossroads, and until next time, cheers.